the spread in the dormitories was noticed in March, at the end of last month. So we began our work with the dormitories more than a month ago, almost a month ago. So why are the numbers still so high?
There's a lot of catching up to do, Salma. This is a very complex situation. It's not people turning up to the emergency department and having a swab. It's hundreds of thousands of men. We have to establish strategies on how to minimise the transmission. For instance, do you put your efforts into the very affected dorms, or do you put them into the slightly affected dorms? There's questions like that, and how thin do you spread across what is 43 dorms, and about they're the purpose-built dorms, and the factory-converted dorms. There's over 1,000 of those as well. So it's cutting across efforts from Ministry of Health, Ministry of Manpower, the Army, the police force. If you're asking people to stay in their rooms until transmissions decrease significantly, you've got to get food to them. You've got to get Wi-Fi. You've got to get capacity for medical services at the dormitories. So people haven't been sitting on their hands. There's been a lot to put in place. You're going to see the numbers high for many weeks to come, and that's more of a reflection on our efforts, I think, rather than than the lack of effort, if you like. It's finding the cases is good. Pulling them out into a community isolation facility is important, but actually they're the most overwhelmed at the moment, and they're being constructed as we speak, because we want to get positive cases out of the dormitory. There's also efforts to pull out the older dorm workers, the essential dorm workers. So as you can see, it is very complicated, but it's getting the attention it needs.
So what you are saying essentially is that the numbers are way too large to manage easily. Although some of the workers have been rehoused, I think about 10,000, we are talking about 300,000, more than 300,000 living in dormitories. So there is still not very much social isolation within the dormitories, and that's why you expect it to spread. Is that essentially what you are saying?
So dormitories aren't one body, right? So there's, for instance, at Sungai Tengah, there's 10 blocks and there's 10 floors, and there's perhaps 20 rooms on each floor. Now, if we can encourage the men to stay on their level, stay in their dorm as much as possible. If they come outside, please don't touch anything. Please stay a metre from other people if you're walking up to use the bathroom. We can prevent transmission within the dorms, but it's challenging. But if you're not exposed to anyone except your 12 fellow room members, if none of those have got it, then as this blows over, then those 12 men didn't get it, for instance. So this is the ambition and part of the strategy.
So you're saying that you expect the numbers among foreign workers to go up for the next few weeks. Prof. Liu, do you agree with that assessment? And does that then mean that the social isolation at the moment is really not working because we can't isolate them enough? Yes,
I think over here we have to look at the mathematics of this. Dale has given a very clear illustration of what the government has done for the migrant workers. Right now, what we know about the coronavirus is that for every infected person, it can go on to infect another 2 to 3 people if there were no measures taken. In a community like in a tightly dense community like in the dormitory, it can actually go up to infect between 5 to 10 people more. So this is a very infectious virus that we're dealing with. Now, why am I talking about this infectiousness? Because if there were no measures taken, right now, if you are seeing between 1,000 to 2,000 cases that are being reported every day, in about 4 or 5 days' time, we will see potentially 4,000, 5,000 cases. In another 4 or 5 days' time, we will be looking at 8,000 to 10,000. That is the reality that we are looking at. We need to drive down the infectivity of the virus, and we drive this down by the measures that Dale has mentioned, really trying our very best to increase physical distancing in the dormitories. Short of putting all of our 200, 300,000 foreign workers in single room as much as possible. Otherwise, we are looking at perhaps an infectivity that one person will go on to infect another zero point 0.8 or another one person. Let me use a simple illustration. Let's suppose we are able to take very successful measures where every person that is infected now only has the chance to infect another 0.5. What this means is that right now we are seeing 2,000 cases. In another 4 to 5 days' time, this will go down to about 1,000 cases. In another 4 to 5 days' time, it will go down to 500. So it will take time for these measures to keep halving the number of infected people. So that is why we, from our model estimates, we think that even with the best measures that we can put in, we are still looking at perhaps 3 to 4 weeks to contain the situation at the dormitory successfully.
You know, some people have suggested that there are actually two different outbreaks in Singapore, one in the community and one in the dormitories. At the moment, the dormitory one is the one that's exploding with very high numbers. So the question is, although it may not be very politically correct, can the dormitory measures be tightened and the rest of the country be eased? Is that possible, and will that work? Prof. Fisher, would you like to take that?
They are two outbreaks. They've got separate strategies. They've got separate epidemic curves. So that's a harsh reality. But they are still linked. You know, so much of Singapore relies on the foreign workers. So there's a lot of services that you couldn't open up anyway, simply because you don't have those men who provide the service. So that will be one limiting thing. Another limiting thing is that if a number of these men get sick, which is statistically likely, then we don't have as much wiggle room in the health system, actually. So this is a bad time for more community outbreaks. So I think that would be another reason to keep things tight in the community and until the foreign worker outbreak is over and the health system can get back some of its beds.